glad we're almost everyone here tonight. Interesting things to be dealing with this evening. So with that, we will go into roll call. Robin, please.
Commissioner Hensick.
Present.
Chair Stevens.
Here.
Commissioner Scott.
Here.
Commissioner Hammond.
Present.
Secretary Roughton.
Present.
Vice Chair Bockert.
Present.
And Commissioner Rubis is not with us this evening. Alternate Adams, not here. Alternate Quarternick. Commission Liaison Broyles. Here. And Council Member Liaison Nyon.
Here.
And Council Liaison Rambo.
Here.
Oh, and I just need to add you to our official roster. I apologize, Nolan. And our student Route 66 Task Force Liaison, Nolan Myers.
Here. Very good. Thank you. Something has been added to our agenda for tonight. It's there, but it's not been there before. And that's the Pledge of Allegiance. So maybe all stand, please. Over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I think we all want to dig into things because there's so much interesting appearing on our agenda. And so I think I'm going to say that's enough from the chair for this evening. And we'll go into the approval of the minutes from the January 26th meeting. Did anyone find anything missing or anything that's not quite correct? I didn't find anything. Yeah. Well, hearing none, the minutes will stand approved by general consent. Do we have any public comment this evening?
Madam Chair, we do have a few in attendance on Zoom. If they would like to speak, if we could just give them a few seconds to identify that with the raise hand feature.
Okay.
So
if anyone out there has anything they want to question or talk about, please use the raise hand. And Travis will see that hand waving and can get us going on it. Any hands?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't forget us, please. Old business. The Route 66 roadside park project update. Haley, would you come to the mic over here, please? Good to see you here. Thanks for being here. So she's going to talk a little bit about the Route 66 mural.
Okay, so a few months ago, Miss Broyles and I had come up. She had come to me after one of our meetings and brought to me what was made in Edwardsville, a mural that they had painted resembling things about Edwardsville, Illinois, and along Route 66 and kind of how it was unique to them. And so I decided with Miss Broyles' help and Google as well to make a kind of like a copy of that mural to see if we could add this into the roadside park somewhere. And you see there are a few blank squares that we have because we are open to suggestions if anyone wants to add something that's not there. And then we are also working on fixing the Hidden Valley Ski Resort and the Get Your Kicks to make them flipped so that you can read them and you don't have to turn your head. But that's pretty much it. And we are open to changing the design of this, changing the color, making it more unique to Wildwood itself instead of just, like general to copying off of what Edwardsville has done.
Debbie?
I would like to make a suggestion for one of the empty squares is possibly put a horse in there because there are a lot of equestrian property owners that take large parcels of Wildwood. and also a lot of equestrian trails, so that would just be a thought.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Hey, anyone? That's Rob?
Yeah, real quickly, just following along to that, there's a lot of equestrian activity in Greensfelder Park, but Greensfelder is a county park that's actually larger than Babbler. We also have Rockwood Reservation and Rockwood Range. And so rather than talking about our measly 2,441 acres of parkland, we can talk about 12 square miles of parks, which is incredible. It's just an incredible resource, and it distinguishes us. So if you can, like tailor the equestrian thing, talk more about Greensfelder, or just, you can figure it out from there. But Rockwood has been there for probably as long as Babbler. So there's a lot of history there that you can really tie in, I think.
Anyone else?
Right.
Yes, Steve.
The Route 66 symbol should be the badge. This is the interstate symbol rather than the old Route 66 badge symbol. So I have the other thing to correct.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can
Dan?
I ask, sorry, can I ask one question?
Yes.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh.
I don't have any idea who you are.
I'm Haley Cottrell, and I'm the communications chair on the Route 66 Student Task Force.
Dan?
Any thought about adding the Wildwood logo?
We can definitely do that. I think that would be a good idea. We could
Maybe-
put that in one of the blank
Yeah.
squares. Yeah.
Either there or add it to the Wildwood
Wildwood,
box.
yeah.
Good. Anyone else?
Excellent job.
Thank
Did a
you.
great presentation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll talk more about it at the next task force meeting.
Thank you.
Hey, Elizabeth, were you wanting to say something as well?
Yes, I was told I was supposed to be down here. I don't care where
I don't know.
I'll speak anyway. Okay. Here. I'll do it here. Thank you, Haley. Haley's going to stay until I complete talking. And my picture of this, they started, I found it in the newspaper. That's how I found it eventually. And Miss Keefe helped mastermind how to make that happen here. And so thank you for that. I have some things jotted down, and I'll run through them. And if you want to hold your hand up and ask me a question about it as we go along, that would be great. Yes, Wildwood can honor the Tourism Bureau in Illinois. We can create a similar concept or design format. Wildwood can also select different colors and fonts, and that's what you said just a moment ago. We can keep the trees, as these are not used in their designs. And Wildwood without trees, what would we have, right? So the trees, if you notice, Haley put those trees in. I think she did a great job. Highlighting the place of the mural will be located on the west side of the Comfort Station building. I know some of you already read this in your notes, so please bear with me because I'm repeating a few items that are in there. The mural is not visible driving west on Manchester Road, and also not visible from the south where the residential community is. So it's in my knowledge of the land was donated, to my knowledge, the land that was donated to Wildwood was by a generous owner. Is that correct? Oh my gosh. I apologize. I must have misheard that.
Joe, we couldn't hear what you said. Sorry to make you get up out of your chair.
Well, that's quite all right. It's good for me to walk. So, actually, the city purchased the half acre for $73,000 for two reasons. First, obviously, the park from the perspective of the department. And secondly, we needed a slew of easements for the streetscape project. By the time the easements were applied to the property, there wasn't much left to it for the intended purpose of two commercial buildings, $73,000.
Oh, well, scratch that off my notes.
Wow.
I know I didn't make it up. I think somebody whispered that in my ear at some time and I wrote it down. The west side of the Comfort Station building was to be a blank canvas, so to speak. There's nothing there. Now, we know that when that is put together, we're going to have you should have a picture in the picture of that Comfort Station somewhere in your notes. There's just a real slice of it on the right-hand side of the picture that Miss Keith put in. So we have to make sure that it's flat enough to paint a mural on it. And if you notice the picture that you have, and you gave us some great suggestions, I wrote them down. The picture that you have is this one in your packet, and it's to the far right. And you just see a slice of that wall there. There it is on the screen. The east side of the building abuts land that will most likely become a retail business later on. And what I have heard from some of the people living in the residential area there is they're pleased to have it here now that they know what it's going to pretty much look like. Of course, they had a fear in the very beginning, and I think they have come around, knowing that they don't want the end of a building, the rear of a building with trash cans everywhere on their side of the view that they would have. The mural could be completed in a later phase. Now, you all know what happens in later phases. Money's tight or not fully allocated. So we do not want the mural to ever be an afterthought, because there's lots of information that's going to be very visible to not only the residents here, but also people that are driving in on Route 66. A story I have to tell you is I was at the, on Route 66, it went pretty much down where where they have the store there. What is it? Help me out with that. The what?
Clancy's Mercantile?
No, not that one. It's on Interstate 44, and it says 266. And the Park Service takes care of it. And I happened to be in there one day buying some things, and there were these two gentlemen riding in a vintage car from wherever they were. I think they were from Ohio. And they were going to be driving all the way to California. And they were asking one of the gentlemen in there, was there any place to eat? Well, of course, I told them where they could go eat. And that would be Big Chiefs. And so they were pleased about that. Few municipalities can claim Wildwood's treasures of distinctive geographical topography. As with all ideas that are completed, it requires much collaboration, as we're doing now, and revision and editing. We've all used to that. From my viewpoint, the students in this Route 66 task force are excited and eager to complete the task to bring this project to fruition. I wish you could see the enthusiasm that they have. And I know some of you have been there. Mr. Scott, you've been there, and you have as well. Ms. Stevens. Haley and I are pleased to answer any questions that you may have. And if we don't have the right answer, we'll ask Ms. Keith or Mr. Yes. Is this for Haley or for me?
Both of you.
Okay.
Have you guys considered breaking that mural up into sections and letting specific schools paint their own portions?
That is not a consideration because it needs to look very professional.
I think it could be done with the school's help and with the artistic help of the school, but that's personal opinion.
I agree. I think if the sign is laid out and the background is marked out with the guidelines by an artist or graphic designer, and under her direction, I think this work can be done by the student. I've seen other work that has been done, and I think they work cheap. And I
was
also,
waiting for that.
and I also, I would appreciate their input on here. And I think pretty much any sort of building surface, should we go to the historic stucco like the Old Pond School or I can't think of the name of the house there on St. Albans for our comfort station, that would be an ideal painting surface. But I think this can be student work.
I will share with you something that I was involved in, and I know the artist. And I'm not projecting that she be involved in this. But you know, over here at the pharmacy, right close to us in Walgreens, do you notice the electrical boxes there and how they're painted with flowers, and mostly flowers are on them, front and back of that building? Well, I finally tracked down her name, and she came and painted a flower on the back of our house where it was the garage, the basement level. And my husband just painted it cream color at one time because it was very visible up above the ground. And those colors remain the same. They're brilliant. So the paint that you use, and it's a west exposure in the back of our house. And so I know that paint is really, really important so that it remains there for a number of years.
Right now, I think if somebody chooses the right paint and with the right direction, I think it won't be expensive to be done.
I understand the money part of that, and I'm all for that. But that's a decision that's made.
I was gonna say, I agree that with Ms. Broyles that a professional should do this, but I also feel like this would be a good way, like you said, to get the school communities in, because I feel like that's kind of what our purpose is as a student task force, is to get our school communities involved in this as well. And, you know, make Route 66 more well known to our school communities and the community surrounding us. So I definitely feel like, I mean, even if we want to make it a more professional look, we could involve just the high schools like Eureka and Lafayette and talk to the higher level art classes and definitely discuss if this is like a project that they would like to work over the time, if that comes to like an agreeable thing that we're going to do. Rob?
I'd just like to add, I feel like we went through this student design process and got submissions, and one of those submissions was a mural that we've got kind of worked into the back of the the play structure. So I'd be a little hesitant to throw another mural design contest into it right now to take away from the 3 entries that we have already submitted or selected as part of this process. And while I appreciate the concern of phases and having less funds available in the future, we already know that this proposal right now is going to be expensive and is going to have to be phased in order to do it. And in my opinion, I don't know that, I think we're premature in discussing additional murals for the project. So that's just my opinion right now.
Rob?
Yes, our colleague, Ms. Clark, has been concerned about the need for the need to comply with our sign ordinances or get CUP. Is that going to be a big problem or a small problem? I'm addressing this to the department.
There's multiple ways to address it, Councilmember Rambo. First and foremost, government signs typically don't have to meet the same requirements as, let's say, commercial or institutional or other signage that's authorized by the city of Wildwood. So first and foremost, there may be some latitude just because it's a government sign on a public property. Secondly, if the size of the sign is such, we could, as we have in the past, submit the application to the Board of Adjustment. And we've done that before. We treat ourselves the same as if we were a private property owner, a commercial business in town center, et cetera. So there are approaches. Is it straightforward and easy? I wouldn't yet go there because, again, the mural has been discussed by the mayor and others. And there are some questions just about the benefit of it. And so I don't want to get too far ahead of this, but certainly we can figure out a way, if the mural is supported, to have it on the comfort station.
Yeah, I would hate to have that be a barrier at the 11th hour or anything like that. But since it's public art, does that provide some further relief? Okay, that's good. So I had a couple other questions or comments. First, we can plan for a flat wall that might save us some material. We were looking at some leftover stone and some leftover glazed brick that the city already has that is, period specific and appropriate. And we might save some money by just having a flat wall there for the painting. But I want to echo what Steve said about students. There are a number of examples around the community, and I think probably around the nation, of student murals on their school buildings, and invariably they're spectacular. I mean, there are always, a couple of art students in a high school that are as good as the pros, and there are a few that think they are, but they're not. And so we'd have to be careful about that piece of it. But I would love to see the students be able to do all these murals, because it does save us some money. But number two, they have some ownership and some authorship, and they'll be taking their grandkids there hopefully someday. So I support that. I support exploring that as much as we can. I don't know that I don't know when this will happen, but I like the idea of having 2 or 3 murals. It's a cheap way to cover some walls. So anyway, that's my spiel. Thank you.
Haley may bring her children to do that.
That's a long way off. You're just a senior in high school. I think this conversation is real healthy, and I think I know I worked in a high school for a number of years as a counselor, and I worked really close with some of the art teachers who helped me with a lot of the students and some of the programs that I was putting together. And so they might be very helpful, is to have those men or women who are art teachers help us with that.
Anyone else? Alan?
There you go.
Yeah, my question is simple. Has our architect been contacted about all of this? Is he aware of what we're doing, to what he has proposed for us? And has he had any involvement in where we are? I'd be concerned that we're kind of going off on a limb here and he has a plan, or where are we in that?
I am not 100% if I've discussed this mural yet with SWT Design and Scott Rundy.
Yeah.
However, at this stage of the process, we're at a very high level conceptual phase of the park design. And that design is still being reviewed. And I think the proposed location for the mural is that side of the comfort station, which currently has nothing on it.
Sure.
And if you've seen the master plan, if you look at that page with all the interpretive elements, at this point, it's purely conceptual because, they're saying, well, maybe it could be etching, or maybe it could be this, or maybe it could be that. But I think it's going to be the next phase where we really get down into the weeds of how that plays out across the park design.
Okay, well, I would encourage his involvement before we get too involved.
Noted.
Dan,
In closing, I just want to reiterate, it's not a money thing, it's a community thing. And that's the whole purpose of getting them involved. Thanks.
thank you. Hey, as I said, we'll be talking about this more in the task force meeting. And thank you so much. You did a great job. We appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And staying with the task force people, our liaison, Nolan has a presentation to make tonight. An update.
So we are still talking about our ideas for the drive-in movie theater. We have I believe the copyright for the show, and we're currently in the task force. Our last meeting, we were working on some sort of pre-show video to play to talk about our Route 66 task force and our roadside park project to raise awareness for that. And with the scavenger hunt, we'll also be talking about that, which is our scavenger hunt we'll be setting up to help promote this. And just basically raise awareness about Route 66 and our park project. I can't talk today, sorry. We have multiple local businesses giving little donations for a prize winner as like baskets and such. And I believe that's what we are mainly covering and what's going on at Route 66 Park project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for him this evening? Yes.
I would just like to follow up that very nice synopsis by saying that there are some flyers included in your packet with the specific dates of the scavenger hunt and the drive-in movie. And there's also flyers on that back table if you want to take them with you and distribute them anywhere you feel appropriate. But as of now, these events are, while we're still doing some of the fine detail work, they are set in stone on the calendar and on the website.
I just had a question. Not to be negative, but what if is there a rain date? I was like, what if it's just a torrential storm, or will it just go on no matter what?
Don't even think thoughts like that.
I know, but it's like, you got to be prepared just in case.
We did discuss this at the task force meeting, and we went back and forth on it. But the fact of the matter is, we would probably need to rebook with certain entities that are helping us put on the movie event. So we'd prefer to come up with a rain date after the fact rather than ahead of time, because we can't ask them to, book 2 dates on the calendar. But the movie license does allow, due to inclement weather, I think you have a year to reshow the movie under that same license.
Is the intention that people would park in the grass over here and watch the movie? Is that it?
That is correct. It would function like a drive-in. There would also be a lawn area that's coned off for chairs and blankets. And apparently there have been 3 similar movie events in the past that were done by Wildwood business owners. So we do have some experience with it. We've talked to our police department, And they sounded very confident, just like easy peasy. It's gone off without a hitch the last 3 times that they have done it. So we already have a setup planned, and they are also doing a safety plan as well.
Anyone else? Yes.
Is there any way to give, say, cars over 20 years old preference in the parking? I think these should be old cars in there.
They might get preference on our social media account. All right, any other questions? I am really excited to show you some of the clues that we came up with for this hunt. I think it's going to get people very excited in Route 66 history. It's going to give them a lot of exposure across the corridor, and it's going to, for those who are serious about winning some of these pretty substantial prizes, actually, that local businesses have donated. I think it's going to take some work exploring our Wildwood points of interest map, watching our selfie video, taking the virtual tour, to find some of these answers, which I think is fun. But you will see those clues when everyone else does on April 1st. Yes, anybody is eligible to enter the scavenger hunt, though I think you have a bit of an unfair advantage.
Yes.
Especially since one of the clues gives bonus points for taking a selfie with a commission member. It might disqualify you from actually winning a prize, but you can certainly participate in the scavenger hunt for
The fun of it, for sure.
Yes.
Hey, anything else?
Where are you gonna post the
The clues will be posted on the website, on the advertised webpage that's on the flyer. And we'll also be developing a brochure that we'll be giving out at City Hall and various locations as well as of April 1st, when the hunt begins. However, if you're interested in a sneak peek, I am happy to send you my draft clue list ahead of time. Yeah. Sure, absolutely. There will be hard copies and there will be online copies as well. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, number 3, Madison Valley, formerly Old Slave Road Memorial Plaque. Who is presenting?
I am presenting this one. Thank you. And for those of you who are flipping through your packets, I apologize. It is the separate memo in your packet. It's in the back. All right, so as you are aware, City Council did give us the go-ahead for pursuing the installation of a memorial plaque honoring Elijah Madison within the area of Madison Valley, which was formerly Old Slave Road. Last meeting, we gave you a number of steps for the project to take us to completion, keeping in mind that there is a deadline for this project at the end of this year. So we went ahead and got started on the first 2 steps, which was identifying possible memorial plaque styles, and then also determining what choices of location we might have to explore. So I am just going to flip through a presentation for this purpose. You also have a lot of this outlined in your memo, but we'll start with current types of memorial plaque that currently exist in the city of Wildwood. So what do we already have? And perhaps the first and foremost program I wanted to mention was our award-winning Wildwood Historic Community Markers Program. So this is one type of plaque. Currently, it gives descriptions and histories of our 11 historic communities in Wildwood, but it is also provides a very nice defined style of memorial, of a memorial marker in Wildwood if we want to keep our styles consistent. Next, I just wanted to show you the various ways we honor people through our Parks and Trails Memorial Program. Through that program, you can get a dedication brick at Old Pond School. There's also tree dedications and bench dedications. And so you can see the style of plaques that we presently use up on the screen before you. This is not so much a memorial plaque, but I felt since it was honoring individuals, I would just bring up our newest addition to our programs here at Wildwood, which is our Hometown Heroes Banner program, honoring our honoring those who are currently serving and have served in the United States Armed Forces. And then finally, even though this is not a Wildwood or City of Wildwood program, I thought it would be amiss not to mention our St. Louis Cycling Club historic markers as a potential style that does exist presently in Wildwood. All right, so I also presented some additional types of markers. Again, this was just to give us a scan of what is out there, what we might be thinking about. One was an etching into the sidewalk, kind of like our stars walk. I don't know what the official name in the loop is. Yeah, the Walk of Fame. Then we have a possible sculpture honoring an individual. Here I thought were some really nice representations of, how a plaque or a marker honoring an individual might stand out from like a historic community marker. And so here you can see those depictions. And then finally, this is just a plaque mounted on a stone. And the second part of our research was to explore possible locations for these markers. So here I have the map that I included in your packet this evening. And here's a synopsis of what we're thinking about presently. And of course, you can always add your own input if you've come up with any ideas since our last meeting. But this yellow flag here represents a strip of land that's actually owned by the City of Wildwood due to a past bridge project. So that is just north. Here you can see Madison Valley. So that is just north, and then on the western side of the road of Wild Horse Creek. Secondly, we have where this white flag is land that is owned by a private developer. But this land is encumbered primarily by floodplain. So there is limited use potential, and we could probably have a discussion. I think the other three locations actually involve Babbler State Park and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, potentially reaching out to them and asking if they might partner with this memorial plaque, either placing it along the roadway to its eastern side of Wild Horse Creek Road. Or there's this portion up here that just south of the intersection. That could be a potential location. I think discussions were had at one point about possibly using it for a project. And then finally, we identified this clearing here where this green flag rests next to Worth Road, which is within the park, as a possible location for a memorial. And it is in relative proximity to Madison Valley, but it wouldn't be quite as visible from Wild Horse Creek Road. So those are some of the possibilities that we came up with. Tonight, we're interested in hearing your discussion about what you like, what you don't like, and taking your direction as to what options, both in style, plaque, and location options, we should explore further as we move on. And of course, if one option calls out to you as the option, feel free to make an action on that as well. Thank you.
May I ask you to point out again where Madison Valley is? I didn't catch your little
It's
pointer
this-
when you were doing.
It's this
the
bright
yellow?
yellow
Okay.
line here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Travis, would it be possible to pull up a Google Street View of Wild Horse Creek Road? While you're pulling that up, I'm gonna go ahead and talk to my feedback on these items. So I appreciate you bringing us the marker options. I personally don't think we should reuse the community marker shapes for this, just to not overlap. I think they're distinct and they work very well for the program that we're using them for. I lean towards the probably like the Alfred L. Woods, the rock with the plaque on it. Something along those lines. Just one, if you could find a rock similar to that, I think it gives you an option to put a plaque on it and not necessarily take up or become super prominent. I think there's potential for concern right from the homeowners, the residents on Madison Valley. That being said, I'm not, we all think are of the opinion that people aren't going to be visiting this in droves and causing traffic, but I like the rock type approach or something similar to that. I'm assuming that there's not, so the previous marker has a face on it. The markers prior to the rock has a face on it. I'm assuming we don't actually have any pictures of the
That was gonna be my question.
aforementioned.
Actually, I believe we do have
Oh, okay.
a visual depiction of the
Okay.
individual in question.
I think so.
And just since I'm kind of here and Charles is pulling it up, I lean towards the yellow flag marker closest to the road because it's closest to the road. So, I think it makes the most sense to try to physically attach it to that area as opposed to putting it at Centaur and Wild Horse Creek or in the park itself. Thank you.
Steve?
Okay, is the location of the Madison farm known? Do we know how close would one of these markers be to the actual farm he had?
I don't think they did.
The plantation that was owned by the two families is actually almost all of the lots that are served by Madison Valley now. So it was in that general vicinity.
Well, yeah, I would think the yellow marker would be my ideal, but it looks like it's sort of back in the woods. I assume it's really next to the road with a place to pull off that could be constructed.
It's an adjacent, an abutting strip along the road.
Oh.
The mark or the flags kind of dropped. They don't drop exactly where you put them on the map.
But,
So they are an approximate location
yeah,
only.
I mean, I would say that would be the ideal. I think the fact that you don't have to say where Madison Valley is, and perhaps even if you're further up the road at the red or the white one, to say in the end, Madison Valley Road was named after Elijah Madison, something like that. Don't tell them where Madison Valley Road is, because the sign for Madison Valley is not on Wild Horse Creek Road. It's up a few hundred feet. So that, but, and in addition, I'm talking, unfortunately, I would think, I like the shape of the signs we are using to identify. I think it identifies the plaque as being Wildwood. I think it's a very handsome plaque, and I think it would just give it a little more importance that this is a Wildwood historical thing. Now, if we could possibly get added to that plaque the face of Mr. Madison, I think that would be great to have that on there. That I imagine would significantly increase the price of the the plaque. But my vote would go for, to use our standard historical marker design. And I'd like to learn more about Elijah Madison. How was he able to, if he was a slave, how was he able to enlist in the Union Army? Was it after the Missouri, Governor Missouri, long before the Emancipation Proclamation, emancipated all the slaves in Missouri. I don't know the date, how that lines up with when he entered the Union Army or not. I'd like to know a lot more about him, but be interested how he managed to do that and how he got his farm in the end and all that. And I don't know how much of that can go on the plaque, but whether it does or not, I'd like to know more about it. It's fascinating to me.
I have a feeling we will all learn a lot about Elijah Madison over the course of this project.
I'm wondering, what is our budget towards this marker? Have we been given one?
No budget.
Okay. Dan?
Well, we can exceed that.
I second Steve's recommendation that we go with the existing design with an added photograph if possible.
Chris?
I just wanted to ask a couple questions regarding to what Travis has on the screen here. So is that, sorry, one other clarifying question, because Commissioner Scott called it out. Is that Spiceberry Lane, and Spiceberry Lane then forks to the left and Madison Valley goes to the right, technically? Is that?
Yes.
So Spiceberry Lane connects to Wild Horse Creek. Madison Valley is I don't know the proper terms, an offshoot of that. Is that correct? Okay. So in terms of the street view you had here, that technically is Spiceberry Lane. Now we're facing west. If I am mentally oriented here, the yellow marker in your diagram, Robin, would actually be across that bridge and on the left. So not at this corner of the intersection of Spiceberry and Wild Horse Creek. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be north of it and to the west.
To the west of Wild Horse Creek, you mean on the essentially on the left side?
Yes, correct. Okay. If you're going north.
Okay.
On the left.
Going along with wondering where his land was. I think I read something recently that his father is said to have been buried in that cemetery on on Madison Valley Road. So that's another close by thing connected with him.
I think Travis, and yeah, that picture there is probably very helpful. Can you kind of point out where the spots are on the picture? On this drawing?
So where it is, it could be in this general location.
This one has Old Slave coming right into Wild Horse.
Because I believe, I haven't been down on that road on my bike in a while, but I believe Spiceberry. Does it have a double? Does it have two road signs?
Yes.
Put multiple street signs on a single pole, provide direction. Public Works have looked at that and can.
And Madam Chair, if I could, Director of Public Works just sent me a text message. He must be watching on YouTube. He says that the Madison Valley sign is currently at Wild Horse Creek Road now.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And Google is the last to know about a street name change.
Well, is it a single sign, or is it the three names of the roads all on one post like I've seen pictures of in the past?
I'm not sure, Madam Chair, but certainly the department could get a photo for you and send it out to the group tomorrow or sometime early next week.
Because I know I've seen on Google a picture of the single pole with Wild Horse Creek Road and then Spiceberry Lane and Old Slave Road, you know, in times past. And so I would assume that this signage would stay the same with just the name changed from Old Slave Road to Madison Valley Road. Yes, Chris.
I'm totally dominating. I apologize, but so the reason I asked you to pull that street view is because it gives you a look at kind of what the area looks like. I feel like based on that street view, that's really potentially overgrown and the yellow marker may not be great in terms of providing, especially a rock. And I'm not opposed to if the commission says, yeah, let's use the same format. Great. That we're all having a conversation around it. So selfishly though, I feel like it'd be awesome if it was like right here at one of these corners. I don't know that that's been provided as an option. It might not be feasible just due to easements, but like I love the idea of it being right there if we could make that work. But is it a memorial from the city? Is it a memorial for the street, the neighborhood? Like what depends on what the ultimate intention is. So.
I don't think the neighbors want it very close.
No.
Yeah.
Just a couple of points relative to the yellow flag. That's a 15-foot strip that the city acquired as part of the bridge project. So it's not expansive. And certainly typical parking stall is 9 by 19. So conceivably something could work there, but it may not just based upon the characteristics. And so if this was a location that was shown to have some favor with the commission members, then the Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning would work together to see if it is actually feasible. If it was something that didn't seem reasonable to all of you, then we would just scratch it off the list and move on. And so from that perspective, I just wanted to give you some background on it.
Is there enough room there at the yellow flag location for a pull off?
Well, with the 15-foot width, we could do a pull-off. Again, when you park in a parking stall, whether it's here at City Hall or anywhere, they're typically 9 feet wide. And so that'll give you enough space. Now, again, is it the best location? I don't know.
Okay.
So just be aware of that. And I would ask the two council people, Ms. Nyan and Mr. Councilmember Rambo, to maybe relate the conversations that were held regarding this memorial plaque. Because my recollection is that the owners of property on Madison Valley were concerned about drawing attention to it and just having people kind of drive in.
Yeah.
So.
Steve?
Yeah, I think initially I felt, yeah, it should be right at the corner there, but I'm now thinking driving along Wild Horse Creek Road, a lot of that traffic is commuter traffic. And perhaps maybe the best place that we get the most serious attention would be to place it in Babbler Park on that loop road where people are driving, sightseeing and looking for things. They would see it, they would stop, they would read it. While normally you're driving along Wild Horse Creek Road, you're not going to stop and look at it. It may get more attention in Babbler, and as long as you could note that Madison Valley Drive is named, the local street, Madison Valley Drive, is named in honor of Elijah Madison, something like that at the end. And not necessarily, here's where it is, and it's right around the corner, that the park may be the best use for that plaque.
Any other comment? Do we want to zero in on just a couple places for
Rob.
now, Rob?
Yeah, and it makes, I liked the yellow one, but my concern was if there's space for an adequate turnout for perhaps 2 cars, we already own the space and whatnot, but it should be, the Public Works Department should have some input, because if it's an inexpensive place to put it, that argues for it. If it's not, it argues against it, because there's not going to be a train of cars there, but the neighbors are concerned. So we need to take that into account. So any of these I think would work, because it's Madison Valley. It's not, we're not memorializing the street necessarily. We're memorializing probably hundreds of acres of land overall. And so as long as we're in kind of the right spot, it seems like we have some latitude. And so I would suggest putting the location back on the department, ensure that we can do it in Babbler, ask Public Works Director about the feasibility of these locations and so forth. And you guys can come up with a recommendation, and I personally would be comfortable with whatever you recommend on that score. The marker type, I like the idea of consistency. I do like rocks with plaques on them. I'm not sure when you're driving by, it's gonna be as visible. So it makes sense to me to have a consistent, this is a Wildwood historical marker. Let's stop and look and see what it says. And so I have no strong preference about that, but I will say that to your point, Missouri was a slave state, whatever that means to you. So, but I want to, part of the discussion, as Director Vunich mentioned, was about the history and about Elijah Madison and so forth. I don't want to distort history by having this an Elijah Madison memorial when it's Elijah Madison as a representative of that entire community. And so, people are going to stop and see his picture. We need to be real careful, at least with the verbiage. And if it's cheaper not to have a picture, I vote maybe not have a picture of one individual out of what were probably dozens. So that's my spiel.
Tracy?
According to Miss Clark, who just texted me, she thought, if she remembered correctly, that in the past, when the decision was made as to where to put some markers, maybe a couple locations were identified like these have been, and maybe researched a little farther to see what's feasible, and then actually visited those locations. I don't know about you all, but when you look at it, like you said, it could be overgrown. It's really hard to visualize when we're just seeing these pictures. Not to say that we would have to go to everyone, but if department determines that, a couple are feasible, or 2 or 3 or whatever, maybe it would be worth us actually seeing them before we decide for sure.
Yes.
And just to follow up on that, it was the department's intention to do just that tonight, is reduce our options to those that we really like and then investigate them further through a site visit and through investigation with Public Works about what would be feasible.
Do you have a problem? Have you guys visited? I'm sorry, I'm jumping in here, but
I think at this point, we've identified what we see as potential locations. So I suppose these would be our pocket full of preferences from just looking at what we have to work with. But at this stage, we really are looking at narrowing it down to what seems to be a consensus here, and then investigating them further, because there will be permissions to be had, looking at potential easement information, looking at feasibility. Yes. No, I'm done.
So, to potentially aid in the expedition of this, because it has been decreed or whatever that it's supposed to be completed this year.
Yeah.
I would propose at this point, or make a motion at this point, that we ask the department to move forward with coming up with a mock-up of the design based off of the historic marker program, for what a marker might look like. If we all agree we could try a face, then we should try a face. And that we would move towards exploring the options with the yellow area as our ideal location, and kind of try to move forward with that, just because, to be honest, it's February, it's going to be August here before we blink. And yeah, and so I think if we really want to have this done this year, I mean, just knowing how long Orville marker took and like getting us all out there, it's not a quick process when it comes down to things like that. So I would propose that we move forward with those two options.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I have a counter,
Pardon?
a counter,
A counter?
a comment. And that would be that instead of zeroing in on one, we let the department pick two and revisit both. And agree with the first part with the design review.
Would you care to amend your motion?
Do I need to, or can he?
I think since you made the
Okay,
motion.
I'm okay with amending it to say, hey, if the department could narrow it down to two, yellow being one of them, pick another one and we can try to get out there sometime next month to see. Just looking at, I know Travis pulled up the street view. I pulled up like a 10-year-old street view of that same intersection. With the honeysuckle gone, it actually probably would work. Like with what we saw there was just what appears, my uneducated eye looks like a bunch of honeysuckle overgrowth. And if we were to cut that back, I think it probably suffices. So,
So you're saying this might be an opportunity?
yes. There is a white fence along that road. If the city owns that 15-foot segment, I'm assuming the city owns that fence and is responsible for maintaining it. Do we know?
Okay, just to put that in the microphone, our director does not believe we own the fence, but of course, we'll double check that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I go back that I heard about the man that built that fence. It's not the city's fence.
But it's on city property? It visually looks like no, we think it's off. Oh, okay. Then yeah, we'll need to get out there and see it. Because you can't tell from Google.
So what I'm hearing is we should investigate and research the yellow flag location further. I don't know. I did hear one mention of potentially investigating that location inside Babbler along that loop road. Is there any other interest in that as like a secondary location? Okay, so I'm kind of feeling Wild Horse Creek.
I would have the city Public Works look at all of these. We've given us, say, our preference is yellow. Going down the line and look at them all and tell us if there's problems and what their recommendation would be. We may not follow it, but we'd like to know what they feel is the best, and we'll come to some compromise or agreement on it. But I would say all of these are acceptable. We have a favorite in the yellow, and let's go from there. And we may have to settle for not our favorite one.
All right, well, we'll start with yellow then. And what I'm hearing is you'll trust the department's judgment as to some potential secondary locations.
We have a motion, but we do not have a second.
Second.
Been seconded by Alan. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor? Say
Aye.
yes.
Yeah, yes.
Anyone opposed? Motion has carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Westland Acres is the next item on the agenda. Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the commission, as you'll recall, when we adopted the work program for 2023, a carryover from 2022 was a effort to memorialize and do a program in Westland Acres in terms of capturing its character before that character might be changed by new development. At the February meeting, the department provided you a memorandum that included some steps relative to how we might do that process in terms of memorializing what Westland Acres was, and certainly ensuring that what it is today is not forgotten. And those steps were presented at the February meeting, and ultimately the commission supported those. And in this particular instance, the department has identified them again as part of this memorandum, and with the opportunity again for the commission to add any other additional steps to it. In terms of the first step, it was an attempt to kind of set the goals that the commission has in terms of this project. And tonight, the department is introducing those next steps or those goals to the commission. Those are on page 2 of the memorandum, and there are a total of 5 goals. The first, I think, is one that's very important in that the project should appear, at least from the perspective of the department, as an effort that started in the Westland Acres community, not necessarily City Hall. You may ask, well, what does that mean? I think first and foremost, we need to engage the Westland Acres community to ensure that they endorse this project, and the components associated with it are those steps. I think the error would be on the part of the commission and city if we basically assumed we knew just exactly what might be workable or best for the area and didn't engage the community. Thereafter, I think the steps are the goals are self-explanatory. I think the church has an integral role in the community and always has, and I think it's important that we engage the pastor of the church, the congregation, and ensure it has a role and position and prominence in this process. Thirdly, although new development hasn't yet started there, as it was mentioned in February, there has been an increased interest in the lots themselves and changes potentially to those lots. I think the commission needs to recognize that for the most part, there are property rights associated with that ownership, and we should respect those property rights and not necessarily make this an effort to negate those property rights in future development. I think the two can be done, preservation and development. Fourth, it should be, again, complementary to what the mayor and city council has done recently in terms of recognition of the Westland Acres community and the proclamation that was provided and et cetera. So I think we need to make sure we dovetail on past practice. And then finally, we should use generally accepted practices and principles relative to historical communities and their memorialization and recording, including the oral interviews that we may ultimately do as part of this project. And so those are the goals that the department wanted to present to the commission tonight in draft form, obviously. And then also, if there are any others that need to be added based upon your experiences and your input. And so tonight, we'd like to basically ensure that if we have the 6 steps, is there any we're missing or need to be revised? And then after that, in terms of the 5 goals, are there any that are missing and any that need to be revised? Thank you.
This is a little addition. I was able to listen to taped interviews of a county not too far from here who identified all of the living World War II veterans that were living in the county. And they interviewed and taped each one and made those available. And they're still in the process of trying to get them converted to hard copies. But to sit there and listen to these men, and they were all men, who talked of their experiences of being in World War II was just fascinating. And I guess I'm a little prejudiced. One of them was a relative of mine. And, so often, I know my brother-in-law served in World War II. And as my husband said, he didn't know much of what his brother did in World War II. He was a child at the time. And he said, his brother never spoke of anything. But one day we had another friend at our home when he was visiting. And it turned out they were on the same island at the same time. And they started talking, and the information that we gleaned from all of that talk was just unbelievable. And so I'm kind of equating this to Westland Acres and getting it all recorded in some manner. Because at some time, as Joe has said, there will be new development go in and it won't be the same. Just like you can't go home and have it be the same after you've been gone for a period of time. So that's just my little interjection of, to me, the importance of something like this. Anyone else? Steve?
Well, I think, yeah, I love to hear stories like that, you know, brutally, but my other suggestion is I'd like our commission to meet with their organization or group, or whoever there in their church or in our community room here, but let them tell us what they see for this and how we can help them along with it. Let them tell us what they see for memorializing this area and how it can be done and what we can do. Not up where we're sitting up here and they're sitting down there, but that we sit around the table in the community room or preferably in the church there. That would be my suggestion.
And if it were at the church, it would then, maybe they would feel more comfortable in talking about some things, and it's coming from them in their locale. And that means a lot.
Yeah, we're not pushing, okay, this is what we're gonna do now.
Right, right.
What do you think? So,
Anyone else? Chris?
If I understand the goals right now, or your conversation right now, that no conversation has been had with anyone from the community at this point in time. To say,
No, sir.
to tell them that, hey, the city's thinking about doing this. Okay. So that absolutely should be the next step. And I don't have any problems with the goals that you've listed here. At least right now, I don't have anything comes to mind as additional, other than let's start the conversation so that we can figure out what they'd be interested in learning about. I think it'd be beneficial at that point to maybe provide some examples of other programs similar to what Commissioner Stevens was just saying in terms of how people find that useful and what might be something that the city could help provide or the commission could help provide. Just, I've only been through that area a couple of times, driven up through there a couple of times. I just don't know how open they are to like talking about it. I think it's important. I think the family has been up there for so long that I think it's important. I would assume it's important, but without having talked to them, it's just an assumption.
Well, I've read some things in the media at various times of interviews with Doris Frazier, and she's very positive. And I just find it fascinating, the things that she's been so willing to share, but they've been shared and just maybe reported on by a newspaper person. But that's not getting it all down for other people to read from the mouth of the babes. Nolan.
Yeah, so I just really liked how you guys talked about how we would possibly do this at the church or somewhere they're comfortable, because I've done stuff like this before. I've recorded videos and have a private YouTube channel of like recordings. I have done this with Vietnam veterans and veterans from the Battle of Fallujah. So I have a bunch of that, and I found it was really easier when we did it on their terms and places they're comfortable, because they tended to speak more and were more up to do it than rather than just forcing them or giving them a place. It's just a greater idea that we do this on their terms and their time.
I have a question.
Yes, Alan.
Does the church itself exist in the Chesterfield section or in the Wildwood section?
Wildwood section.
It's in our section. Good. I was going to raise a question. If we're going to have a group like that together, would it be appropriate to invite some representatives from the Chesterfield group that's similar to ours, because they have a similar committee that would be there at the same time.
That's an excellent suggestion and certainly one that Travis, Robin and I can investigate and see if the Chesterfield, city of Chesterfield and its historical component would
Correct.
like to participate.
Yes, Dan.
Just seems to me like we should be a resource in this entire effort should be led by them with as much help as we can give and provide versus a bunch of people outside the community, our community coming up with a plan for their community versus them help, we can help them come up with that plan. But they should drive and we can lend our expertise where needed. Just a thought.
And Madam Chair, Commissioner Roughton, I think that's the intent of goal number one is to try to not have the program necessarily be their responsibility, but certainly that they lead the direction of the program and we do what we can to ensure that we achieve those, that direction for them.
Rob?
Yeah, I think that point is spot on. But we can suggest that at our first meeting. And I do think Nathan's right. We should do it in the place where they're most comfortable and keep it to a handful of representatives from this group. And then from there, the Chesterfield group, evidently, and the Wildwood group, and suggest that we really want to help out. We don't want to drive the bus, but we're a resource. So.
And then just the other aspect on the from the department's perspective, I think there's value of kind of documenting the land before it's changed. So oftentimes you drive by something and you think, I wonder what that was like before the home was built there or the commercial building. And so from that perspective, I think there's a value that here's what it looked like, you know, in 2023 and as the future, whatever the future may bring to it, we at least can look back and say, here's what it looked like, and here's what was done to achieve the outcomes. And hopefully it still looks much like Westland Acres, but not necessarily something completely different. So the zoning nerd in all of us.
Do you need a motion of any sort on this tonight?
Well, I think the next step based upon the conversation is for us to reach out to the community's representatives and initiate that first step and then see if we can arrange something at Union Baptist Church for us to meet and collectively hear their thoughts about what we're proposing. And so no motion, but if there's an objection to us proceeding forward in that way, this would be a great time to let us know.
No, we have been there during COVID time for their fish fries, where it was, drive through. And they were just so appreciative that we were taking part in it. And we had some good commentary going back and forth. And I look forward to more of that. Yes, Steve.
I would like to make the motion that we offer to serve them, as a resource in this procedure and offer to meet with them on their territory in their church or wherever they see fit, but we would serve as a resource to them in this effort. That's my motion.
Okay, is there a second? Dan seconds. Any more discussion on that? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? The motion has passed.
Thank you.
Page is turned here. We come now to the Essen Log Cabin. We just have so many exciting things going on. It's wonderful. Robin, are you presenting on this one?
Yes, I am.
We're ready to listen.
So as commissioners may be aware from last meeting, we did send out the request for qualifications and we contacted our list of architects when we posted that. So they had a month to respond, and we did receive 3 responses, one full proposal. But thankfully it was from a firm we were very much hoping to receive a proposal from, which is Pattern Ives, who I did not have the fortune to work with in the past, but I know some of you are familiar with their work. But they were the firm that helped us tag those logs and came up with the preliminary architectural drawings for the cabin. So they are very, very excited, as you can tell, from the proposal that they submitted to be a part of this work, and they have some very qualified individuals at their disposal. The second response we received was from SWT Design. They submitted a partial proposal, mostly for the site design, and they offered to offer their expertise and collaborate with any additional firms that might be more qualified to lead the project. And then finally, we did have Lauren Strutman of Strutman Architects reach out to us, and she noted that she does not have the capability right now at this time to take on this proposal, but that she certainly would offer her services as a consultant to the project if we should need her. So she also has some experience with historic structures in the area. So tonight we have these 3 responses. I assembled in this packet the 2 proposals that were submitted, and we'd love to hear your feedback and what your thoughts are on what you have reviewed. And we ask for a bit of a direction. All right. Thank you.
Okay, comments, any questions from anyone? Dave?
Sorry to butt in again, but yeah, I'm very impressed with Pattern and Ives, and their thoroughness in their work so far has been very impressive. I have no hesitation in using them. I would really like to involve SWT. And this is from personal experience. Several years ago, we did a reconstruction of a 1830s plantation for the for St. Charles County Parks Department. Around the reconstruction, it was in an open field. We used SWT to lay out an historically accurate kitchen garden and little orchard, and their approach to that around to the landscaping around that building, I felt was very impressive. And I think they should be involved in the actual site planning or landscaping, whatever you want to call it. But Pattern Ives, I would use them for the building.
Chris?
The only thing I guess question I have around that is our intention is that this would be done in the Village Green. Do we already have a design partner that's doing the overall layout design of that area? And I'm assuming it's not SWT, or is okay. So is that, do we think that makes sense to try to have another party do a subsection of Village Green related to this?
There are 2 principal firms that are working on the design and engineering plans and bid specifications for phase 1 of Village Green. CDI is the engineering component, and Human Nature is kind of the landscape architectural firm. Human Nature is the company that was used when we did the master plan development. What I would like to suggest is, if the commission is agreeable, to provide a motion to engage or negotiate with Pattern Knives on a proposal for the work on SM log cabin, its reassembly, and let us to ask them if they think SWT design can be integrated into their work program. Certainly their skills are necessary for the reassembly, so I prefer to have them on board as quickly as possible if we're wanting to get the cabin in place as soon as possible. And then ask them about SWT design. I think what we're asking of SWT design is something different than what we've asked of human nature. We've asked them to create basically a village green that has play components and recreation activities. What Mr. Scott just described is something that we're asking SWT design to go back and look at how it might be set up relative to the mid 1800s.
Yes, I think you have the planning of locating the building and the area surrounding it. But and this is sort of a step down for SWT because they do everything, but just the landscaping around the building. Can we plant a little garden here? Can we plant some fruit trees here? Or can we put something else there? Just the area just right around it. It's landscaping. It's not the planning design of the actual area.
And that's kind of what I envisioned when you were describing it, is to not just create a snapshot of a cabin in the village green, but to also surround that with period landscaping and generally how things would have been defined in that period of time. And I think if SWT design has that experience and Pattern Knives as the primary is willing to tap into that, I think that's what we should explore.
Rob?
Yeah, so I like one-stop shopping, and you all seem very comfortable, everyone here, with Pattern and Knives. So I do believe that's the right approach, is to go back to them and see if they need any assistance. These are two fine proposals. Pattern and Knives had evidently has lots of experience in just the kind of project that we're looking at. These other folks, they can do anything. I mean, this is, it's a big time firm, and I'm afraid of having to build an interface between two firms at some cost, an hourly cost. And if we can avoid it, I think that probably makes sense to do so, because the Pattern and Knives folks can undoubtedly help us with the locating gardens and so on and so forth. I mean, we all know that kind of where they were around a cabin anyway. And so I will make the motion that we do just that. Throw this back to you guys, go to Pattern and Knives, ask them if they need help from SWT. And if so, to define what it is, you can get a firmer bid from Pattern and Knives, and you can get the quote from SWT if it's required, and bring it back to us. Is that reasonable?
Yes, and certainly I failed to mention that whatever we receive from Pattern and Knives, whether it's a single proposal because they think they can have the capability that SWT design could bring to the project, or if it's the combined, it would come back to the commission before any other steps would be made.
Sure. Yeah, I would recommend that Pattern and Knives be asked if they would subcontractors have SWT as a subconsultant to them, and have it go through one party, if they would be willing to work together that way, which I imagine they would.
Yes, Mr. Scott, I would always assume that Pattern Knives is the primary, and that I would ask them if they would they object to bring in SWT design as a consultant for these specific purposes.
Dan?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 All those who say no. Thank you. Motion is passed.
So this is pretty exciting.
It
After
is.
years and years of story
Finally,
logs, we're
finally.
getting kind of close. So thank you.
Can I comment? The site is really good. I don't know if how many of y'all have gone over there. I think it's a good location. It's going to work for everyone. And the reason for my concern with two firms is we're getting a lot of heat on council for all these parks. And, you know, we need to pave roads too, and we need to do this, and we need to do that, and we have to be aware of it. And so if we can get this done by you know, and save some money along the way, I think it's a great thing. So thanks.
Hey, anything else on Essen Log Cabin this evening? Okay, moving along then to JP Connell House update. Joe.
Well, I have some good news. I have some bad news.
Oh,
I'll
gee.
start with the bad news. The department reached out to the ownership group and we did not receive a response. So I don't have a particular update in terms of what they're thinking about in terms of the future of that particular parcel where the John Connell House is located and the properties that surround it that are under the same ownership group. The good news is John Connell House stands and it's still there and they're being patient with the process. So that's the update. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on this item? Okay, and I did see a little something, I think it was maybe in the West Magazine where they were mentioned, that house was mentioned.
Yes.
Just so you're all aware, and the council people know this as well, but what Robin and I attempt to do after these meetings, we provide as a for information item on the work session agenda of city council meetings, a lot of the reports that you all receive as memorandums, and then we convert them to reports under the authorship of the commission. So we try to keep the city council abreast of all the things that you all are doing as a commission and the successes we're having with historic preservation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Bellevue Farms.
All right, thank you. Madam Chair, members of the commission, you may be aware that the city has an ongoing lease with St. Louis County for a 100-acre property off of St. Paul Road in southeastern Wildwood. It's a very beautiful property, and most of us got to see it on June 9th of this past year. So I don't have a lot of updates, but I do have news of some exciting work that has been conducted by the Friends of Bellevue Farms. They just had a Be My Valentine honeysuckles hack on February 11th. They had 25 participants show up and they cleared a 1/4 of an acre along the creek area of the property. So we are making some progress there with some of the restoration work. And now they invite us back, if anybody on this commission might be interested, for their Luck of the Irish workday on Saturday, March 11th, 2023. And I have included a link in your packet, perhaps more easily accessed from the online agenda, because then you can just click on it. But if you'd like, please register. I'm sure they'd appreciate having your participation as part of that workday. Director Vunich did ask me about CLG credit. I'm sorry, I don't think it quite qualifies. It's more in the environmental realm than it is in historic preservation. But still, it'll get your blood pumping. You'll do some good work. We'll interact with the friends. And I'm sure it will be a good time where you're green. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on this one? Steve?
I'm sorry, again, I have a question. What is the status of the of Wildwood's improvements there? Such as the road, the parking, and any future development? Have you considered, hiring a again, a designer to design the development of that park.
I think the best response to your question, Commissioner Scott, comes from our 5-year capital improvements plan. And for Bellevue Farms, we actually this year have, sure I get the right number here for you. We have $50,000 set aside for what was intended to be the initial design and engineering for those improvements you just described. Assuming that the work would take most of this year, then in 2025, there is $150,000 set aside for the actual work.
Okay, work program.
All right, thank you. It is me again. I don't have a whole lot to touch on because as you saw, we had 8 items on our old business list. But I did want to give you a quick update on the Wildwood history book because that has certainly been a huge part of my workload for the last couple of months. And we are making a lot of progress. In fact, I got even more pages from Stacy Minkoff, our graphic designer. I think I have pages 1 through 133 reformatted in the new size at this point. You got a small sample. She's even tweaked the pages that you now have in your packet because she does that sometimes. But but we think she's doing a beautiful job, and I hope you agree. And so please take some time to look at the newly formatted pages. My understanding is that we are saving a lot in terms of page count, which will ultimately help us when we go to publishing in terms of bringing that cost of the book down. So we're very excited about that piece of it as well. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we did make that decision to eliminate the bibliography after each chapter, and instead we're doing a consolidated one at the end of the book. So that is not in the pages before you this evening. And so that's what I have as far as the history book. The only other item I was going to touch on, I did promise you last meeting that I would bring back some information on our historic survey of properties. I apologize. We've been having some issues with our software company that would allow me to map and identify these properties for you. But luckily, I received in my email this week access to that license. So I should have an update for you next month where we can review what we have to work with this year. So that's where we are on those 2 projects. And if you have any questions at this time for those or any of the items on our work plan, we of course are available to answer them.
Anyone have any comments? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
It's nice to see all the progress we've been making on this work program. So that's great. We thank you, Robin. New business, nothing ready for action at this time. No site development demolition request at this time. The National Alliance of Preservation Commissioners commission membership.
All right, I just wanted to make another plug, just so that we're definitely using this amazing new resource we have access to. But at the beginning of February, beginning of this month, there was just a wonderful webinar put on by the National Alliance for Preservation Commissions. And what was especially beneficial about it, I think, was just being able to discuss different items of interest across commissions. So really learning from each other's work. There was a lot of dialogue on this particular webinar. It wasn't just a dry technical rundown. It was a lot of collaboration and partnership. And part of the benefit of membership to this organization is you do have access. You can subscribe to a forum. I've already been receiving lots of messages where you can discuss different issues over time. So not even just in that webinar format, but actually one of those like listservs, or I don't know exactly how to describe it, but you can respond to people's questions. You can post questions and have a dialogue across the membership. They also produce a webinar series that members have free access to. So this is going to, of course, help us meet our CLG training requirements. So I will be sending out any updates periodically about possible webinars that are available through this organization. And there's lots of other resources available on there as well. I think example design guides and all kinds of things. It really is a treasure. I thought it was one of the more beneficial resources I had discovered in the historic preservation world. So, so the department did purchase an organizational membership. We are all included in that membership. I already sent them a list of emails, so you should be receiving email updates, and I hope you will join that community. So that link was on the online agenda, I believe. So feel free to click it or just Google NAPC, and that should come up. Thank you.
Any questions or comments on this? Great. I was out of town the day of that webinar. That was around noon. And I was able to go in later and click on it and the link and go in and observe it. It was really good. And I was so glad I was able to, and didn't need another credit at that point, but that wasn't the purpose of it. It was what they were providing, the information that we were getting. And it was so nice to be able to come later and see something that you had missed out on. So we thank you for that help.
Do we need some sort of login as members of the, since we bought a license or bought access?
Let me look into that. As I said, I did submit all of our emails to the organizer. So my understanding was they were supposed to send you out an email, maybe a welcome email where you could go in and sign up or sign into an account. But I will double check that for you and make sure something else is sent out as a reminder.
Thank you. Okay, we have another item. Upcoming visit from the State Historic Preservation Office.
So speaking of your CLG training, every 5 years or so, apparently our State Historic Preservation Office comes for a visit to meet the commission, to attend one of our meetings, to have a meeting with department staff and our chair and possibly members of this commission beforehand, and discuss how we're doing as a CLG. So they actually gave me, pretty long questionnaire. I was assured by our CLG coordinator, John Peterson, that we are absolutely passing it with flying colors, that this is more of a formality since they haven't been here since 2017 or something that was past that 5-year mark. But I think he's just looking forward to meeting the Wildwood Historic Preservation Commission, because he's certainly been a fan ever since we started talking about all the different initiatives that we have. Every time I send him our official HPC agenda, I also send him our student Route 66 task force agenda and minutes. And so they're very excited about that model program we have going on here as well. So very cool. So that he is planning to come possibly in April or May. I need to get that scheduled with our chair. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that this was going to happen and that it'd be an opportunity to meet our State Historic Preservation staff. And they even offered to do a presentation to this commission if we're so inclined to hear one. And that would include presentation on that Historic Preservation Fund grant and the money is available through that. So that's my update. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And we were looking at a regular commission meeting date to have him.
That's correct. He gave me 2 dates, one in April and one in May, that correspond with our Historic Preservation Commission meeting. So it would be one of those dates and we just meet beforehand and then they would attend the meeting.
Anything else?
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Upcoming meeting date is March the 23rd. I love February and March. You don't have to worry about dates at the same day, both months. We need to get the calendar to do that for all the months together. It's been a great meeting tonight. We've covered a lot of things and it's exciting what lies ahead for us. Yeah, there's some work involved, but you don't get any place if you don't put some work in. So I'm extremely pleased with everything. And guys and gals, you are the greatest bunch, I swear. Well, I'm not supposed to swear. But you are, no, you're just wonderful to work with. And if you have a difference of opinion, we handle that difference. And nobody's angry and wanting to get at people. It's a real congenial bunch. And I really appreciate being your chair. Because if it was the other way, I think I'd walk out.
Don't do that.
I think we need a motion for adjournment unless someone has something else they need to say. Dan?
Real quick question. Does the department have to- Okay.
Oh, thank you.
We will have something for a more formal action than what was taken in January on the agenda for March. I've been advised by our city attorney, since it wasn't an item identified on the agenda, we need to do it more formally to meet sunshine requirements, et cetera, and then we can have a further discussion thereafter.
Thank you.
I move we adjourn.